Hey, well, welcome to a very exciting podcast. Today, I'm joined by three amazing people doing amazing things in our world. And so I'll give you a little quick introduction, and then we're going to jump into some conversations that we believe could not just inspire you, but move you to change the world around you. I'm going to introduce you first up to Kath Slev, who's on my right. Kath Slev is the CEO of our foundation, Linc Foundation. She loves it when I call her the CEO.
Yeah, Chief Entertainment Officer, apparently.
You're far more than that. She's far more than that. She's awesome. Has built that over the last, it's probably about 6-7 years now. We're getting going on. So you're doing amazing things, Kath. We'll talk more about that. Tammy Taylor, who's on the team with Kath, is an occupational therapist herself, studied at COFSIS, which is the University of...
The Free State.
The Free State.
The
Come on, people.
State.
If you're from the Free State, Tammy Taylor, she's amazing. Her and her husband, Louis, are part of our church and just incredible people. And we're just so grateful for you being on the foundation team. You certainly have added a whole new dimension to how we interact and the level of work we're doing in our schools. That's exciting. And then very special guest today, Dr. Anna-Marie van Jaarsveld, who was Tammy's lecturer at COFSIS. That's a little bit of a backdrop, context.
Yeah.
But Dr. Anna-Marie, we just want to say it's awesome to have you in the studio, in the room today. Kath speaks very highly of the work you do, as does Tammy. And I'm excited. I'm excited to learn more about what you're doing out there and just the kind of lives that are being impacted by the work you do. That's something we really just, we don't want to grow tired of celebrating the stories that are changing people's lives. There are many mundane lives, but there are very few that are out there making a difference for somebody else. So we just want to honor that right up front and say, you're obviously a very special human, and it's really cool to have you in the studio. So maybe we can start by just a little bit of a backdrop. Tell us a little bit of the last 30 years, 40 years. I don't know how far back you want to go. You only look about 45. So,
15 years.
But just your time studying, what you started seeing, how that started to lead you in the direction that you are today and how we are today.
Okay, thank you. I think I want to start with saying that where it all started is I always wanted to work with kids. And I don't know in which direction I'm going to go, but in the end I ended up with occupational therapy. And when I started in the academics and starting to work with students working in the community, I realized there's just such a big need because before I went into academics, I was in private practice and working with children with learning disorders, with autism, with ADHD. But it was, in a sense, privileged kids because they could afford occupational therapy in private practice. But once I started working with the students in the communities, I realized how many children are out there that's never going to be able to see a private occupational therapist. And then I also started focusing within the field of sensory integration. And the more I worked there, the more I realized that there's a lot of kids in the community that's got sensory integration challenges and difficulties. And how are we going to address this?
Okay, so as you say that word, sensory integration, if you've just joined us and you're watching this, we are having a conversation around a company or a dream, perhaps we can call it, called Sensory Play. Is that right?
No, it's actually sensory spaces.
Sensory spaces.
Yeah, and it's driven at the moment by the South African Institute for Sensory Integration. So the institute is there to do training of occupational therapists in the field of sensory integration, and they've actually adopted the sensory spaces from 4 years ago when I retired from the University of the Free State. They said, but they would like to adopt the project, which was previously known as Back to Earth Playgrounds.
I see that, yeah. But Earth, U-R-T-H.
Yeah.
Why the U?
Well, I thought the best way for kids out there with little resources is let's use what's available on Earth.
Ah, cool.
I like it. And that's available in the environment.
So when you say sensory integration, and obviously this is what brings you into the conversation with Kath and Tam, and I'll jump there now with the Linc Foundation. What is sensory integration?
Okay. I think the easiest way to explain that is that we all depend on our senses, and most of us know about our vision, about hearing, about tasting, about smelling and tactile. But then there's other two sensory systems that's more unknown. The one is vestibular system, and I'm going to just the easy way of talking about that is your balance system, your system that assists with your balance. And the other one is the proprioceptive system. That's got to do with body awareness, body position in space. Where's my body in space? And what's my body doing in space? So those are the sensory systems. The last two are fairly unknown, but they are the ones that a lady with the name of Jean Ayres did a lot of research in the 1950s, 60s. And she came across the whole field of sensory, or she's the mother of sensory integration, looking at the importance of your sensory systems in learning, in doing, and in becoming. So if your sensory systems does not support your functioning, you're going to have problems functioning in daily life.
That's incredible. So obviously that leads us to the foundation and Tam and Kath, and we're working in some schools out there, and I think this is incredible that I don't know how your paths crossed. You're going to have to tell me that one, but it's incredible because the heart for the schools is to, as I understand it, is with all our programs is to make sure that the children that go through the educational system in more rural communities, less privileged communities, have access to everything to succeed in life. And I love that now we're picking up on a part of it that is a new part of their growth phase, the sensory integration. It's new for me. My daughter had a sensory thing when she was young, just to say that. And we had a friend that picked up on it when she was probably like 3-4 years old. And she said, your child is an incredible young girl, but is going to really struggle if you don't help her through those moments. And as a friend, took her under her wing and honestly changed her life. So when you talk about building sensory playgrounds, etc., in schools, I, as a parent, know firsthand what it meant for my daughter to be impacted by very intentional play therapy that helped her function in a mainstream school and ultimately do well in academics. So I kind of know a little bit of it. But Kath, why don't you tell us how did this come together? What's going on in the foundation, and what are you seeing for this journey, should I say?
I think for me, it started with conversations with a lot of the principals and the teachers. And there's always this heart cry, I guess, from them, because that there's some children in their classes that they really actually don't have the means to support or assist. So yes, some of them with learning challenges, and then just seeing a little bit of the desperation on behalf of them and the parents. I think the one school I'm talking about, a lot of the parents are sort of casual laborers. They live on a farm, they're sugarcane cutters. And their ability to send a child through to a hospital or to a therapist is literally, it's non-existent. So now the child will come back and will remain in the class and fail year after year until eventually they leave school or they drop out. And for me, that's like, what? That can't happen, especially if something can be done about it.
Exactly.
And so I think that was prompted of talking and thinking. And then I met Tam. And Tam played an golf day, and then I found out she was an occupational therapist. And then, you know me, give me a hand, I'll take your whole arm. But I think that prompted our conversation. We started talking and not really knowing what to do, but just really, to be honest, a God thing. This is a God moment for us, having Dr. Van Jaarsveld here. It just was following a pathway. And so Tam very kindly jumped in the deep end and started working in the schools and finding out. And I just think we might not be able to bring we will actually, hey, we're going to do it, occupational therapists to the schools. But what's something we can do in the interim with what we have? How could we support teachers to fill some of those gaps in the classroom? And how can we just try and close the gap for some kids who actually don't really have a learning disability? They probably could catch up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible. Like you say, it's exciting because something can be done. It's not a pipe dream. There's a solution, and it just needs buy-in from a bigger audience. And so, Tam, tell us, for you out there, you're working in the schools very closely as an OT. You're very aware of some of that lack of sensory integration, should I say. What's happening in the schools? What are you seeing? What are you excited about as we sit around and talk about the playground options?
Yeah, I think coming from the OT background, I think you do look at situations slightly differently when you're interacting with children in the classroom spaces. And I think you see you see every learner when you walk around and you say, I wish I had time. I wish I had the time to sit with this learner, and I wish I had the time to sit with this learner. And I think that's something that in therapy, maybe kids have access to, but there they don't. And I think my heart just started like burning for how do we bring some of that into this space? How do we meet this child where they're at with some of the needs that you know that you can address by bringing access to certain activities or methods of play or different resources, or just like equipping people with the understanding of what these learners are having difficulties with. And I think my heart just started like, how do we do this? And then feeling overwhelmed with, but there's so many. You see the one, but you see this one, and then you see this one, and you go, what am I going to do? And then you feel slightly overwhelmed at first, and then you start saying, well, what are we going to do? And then you start thinking, okay, well, maybe I don't know exactly, but we started talking, and actually this is an incredible thing you mentioned about paths crossing. In my final year as an OT, I worked in a community block, and I had to report or just come and give some feedback on a block we had done. 2 students, myself and a friend, were placed at a block in Philippopolis, which was sort of not a pilot, but it wasn't the common placements. And I had to come and give some feedback to Mrs. van Jaarsveld or Anna-Marie, as I'm now learning to say.
Tough.
So nice to be out of varsity. Let's just appreciate that
It's
right
been
now.
taking the whole day since
Just to be
7
big
this
people
morning.
and friends, and yeah, exactly.
Obviously just someone I've really always looked up to, and know that she really has a heart for this field and understands it, dedicated her life actually to meeting the needs of kids in those spaces. But I remember in this conversation when I got back from Philippopolis, at the end of the conversation, she said, I'm thinking about building a playground in these in rural schools. And I obviously know that she's been involved with sensory integration, which is a specialized field in OT. I haven't studied that section, so it's a learning curve for me too. But I knew that so when I was in these schools and having conversations with Kath, this memory came back from that moment where she mentioned this in 2015. And one thing led to the next, and I thought, okay, well, let's send an email. Let's see. I haven't had any contact with her since then. Did this project ever happen? Did they go through with it? What's happened with it? So I emailed her, and she said, yes, it happened. They've built playgrounds. Yeah, we've done research. And I said, well, can I read it? And I read the article they published, and it was just amazing. It really felt like a God thing. And just to bring those two worlds together, it's being in a space where you feel like you don't know how to address the individual needs on a larger scale. And then you recognize that there's someone who's walked that road. Sure. You say, okay, well, I maybe don't know exactly how to address this, but here's a tool where someone's walked a road, and how can we learn and bring you into that space and say, this is a project that's been on your heart that addresses that very thing. It's not the solution to everything, but we know that it makes a significant difference. So how can we bring that into the space? So we had a Zoom call. And I at first thought I'm back in varsity when I heard your voice. I was like, oh, that sounds so familiar. But just an incredible moment where I think and then the conversation started, and they said, yes, we will do.
And now we're looking at jumping the gun a little bit here, but we're working in how many schools now as a foundation?
We're in 9.
In 9 schools, so ideally 9 playgrounds. Can we talk about these playgrounds for a little bit? I'm pretty sure everyone listening is now going, tell us about the playgrounds, like the research and the backdrop. And I love what you're saying, Tam, that for you it was a thought and a phone call. For Anna-Marie, it's been a lifelong passion. For Kath, it's the dream of a foundation that serves communities. For me, it's playing a part in that through the church. And somehow together we sit on the sofas and say, that's the role we played. But there's others sitting out listening to this now thinking they want in. They want to know what these playgrounds are about. They've got access to resource. And for sure, they're not going to go and do the years of research that you've done. But I know so many people right now in our nation, and it's a pivotal moment in our nation. There's a real sense of urgency for us to collaboratively do something well for this future, certainly post the elections this year. So talk to us about the playgrounds. What do they look like, feel like?
Can I maybe say where it started?
Tell us, yes.
Yeah, because that's going to tell why it looks like it look. Is that when I knew children with growing up in low, well, under-resourced environments do have sensory integration problems, we did that research. So we've done that, and we've ticked the box in terms of, yes, these children do need sensory integration therapy. And then for a few years, I didn't know how to address it because it was just so huge for me. And then, as we all know, God plays an incredible role in all our lives. I was introduced to a shack replacement building method, which uses cob building and tires. And then I was introduced by Dr. Anita Venter, also of University of the Free State. When I saw this method of building shacks with tires, I thought, but why can't we build playgrounds with tires and with this building method, which is eco-friendly and low cost? And and that's where it all started. Then the wheels really started turning, and I started to design and think about, okay, what would we include? But then this is where the sensory integration come in, because I wanted playground equipment that would address sensory integration functions, so that a child would play on that playground and it would be a sensory enriched experience, and especially providing then the vestibular and the proprioceptive, or the balance and the body awareness type of input that a child needs.
So I just want to pause there again, because I think this is such a big deal for anyone listening. You mentioned those two senses that are seldom, if ever, spoken about, and could just be the secret for a child advancing in their classroom and ultimately life, right? So just to go back to those again, you mentioned the vestibular.
Okay, the balance one,
balance.
The balance system, and then the body position sense. Let's call it body position sense.
Okay, so when a child has those two systems functioning well, or let's say when they don't, let's say a child arrives, they're struggling in the classroom. What are those two, the balance and the awareness, what's that doing to affect their...
Can I just add tactile here? But we all know tactile, but tactile is a third main ingredient here, so I need to add the tactile system as well. So in terms of vestibular and the proprioceptive systems, those systems have got to do with your body and how you use your body. Can I sit upright for 2 hours in the morning doing my schoolwork? Does my body allow me to do that? Do I know where's left and right? Do I know where's up and down? So my body sense and my movement through space learns me that. So if I'm not moving through space a lot, or if the quality of what I'm doing is poor, my perception is going to be poor. So it affects my cognitive abilities, or it can affect my cognitive abilities as well. So, and taking it further, so if I don't know left from right, or even which hand is my dominant hand, how am I going to write? How am I going to know which side a B faces or a D faces? So it really impacts on your cognitive learning
and
as well.
And do you find that, this is fascinating for me, I'm just going to deep dive here for a moment, but do you find that children that are aware, they're subconsciously aware that something's not right, I'm not sure if that is what they feel like, do you see it affecting their confidence as much as their competence?
Absolutely. Yeah, we see a lot of children with low self-esteem that's got sensory integration difficulties, because their bodies, they very often know in their heads exactly what they want and what they need to do, but their body is not assisting them. So the output is not there. So yes, I know I want to do that. I know I want to read, but my body does not assist me to do it.
Wow. I think it's incredible, and I'm excited to go a bit further down this road of the playgrounds and what they feel like. But it's amazing, because one of the things I feel like you're doing, just as we're chatting, your dream and the vision that you have, it's taking shame out the system. The shame of not knowing what to do when I'm in an environment, the shame of not having what it takes to progress academically, the shame of a parent not knowing how to help a child that they are aware is battling. We see that even in a more privileged society, people don't want to engage that space because they feel like something's wrong with their parenting or something's wrong with their child. And I just think it's so beautiful that just right up front you're going, no, we're all designed for something beautiful. And you're looking at more natural ways of removing those barriers. And I think what you're doing without knowing it is actually taking a lot of the shame out the system. So just to say, in my spirit, I think it's really exciting from that aspect, yeah. So as a child starts to work on those three senses, they gain confidence, they become more aware of what they have and what's going on around them, and it has a knock-on effect to the academic progress, or...
Maybe, I can share the research that we've done. When we've built a playground in 2017 in Springfontein in the Free State, we decided to do research and to see what happens if we assess the children before they're exposed to the playground and then put them through a 3-month program which educators implemented, not an OT. I designed the program or the activities, but the educators implemented it, and then retest the children after 3 months again. And we had a control school that had very similar type of kids, or also from under-resourced communities, but they didn't have a playground. So we did have a control group as well. And then, we did the program, and after 3 months we went back and there were significant changes. Not everything changed, but there were significant changes in terms of their sensory integration functions. And we also used a school test, and that also indicated a significant change in some aspects of schooling. And some of them were definitely on a perceptual level, which I've just spoken about earlier. So yes, we know these playgrounds do have an impact.
I think it's incredible. And that's 3 months. You imagine what that is over a lifetime of a pupil or a student.
We did a longitudinal study as well.
Of course
2 years after that. And yes, the result is really promising. But we need some more research.
No pressure.
There's a subtle grin in her. There's a subtle confidence in her laugh right now because she knows she's onto something. And I'm just wondering how soon we can jump onto it and put this in all 9 schools. What does a playground consist of? How big is it? What does it cost in an ideal world? Let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, we build with what we have and what's available. So it can be I think the first playground we built was really... it was under 10,000 Rand. But we got a lot of donations from farmers. That just donated some of the materials that we needed. But when we started realizing there's a need for this and this is going to roll out, we started doing the budgeting and if we go and buy all the materials. And it's mostly, the tires you don't need to buy because they're freely available. You just need to collect them, as Tammy will be able to share with you. So the tires are free. A lot of the sand and stone that's used, we use what's available in the environment. And then it's poles and nuts and bolts and cement and concrete that you need.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you're building a really strong, beautiful playground. I was reading a bit about you and I saw there was a swing. There's a certain swing that's added to these playgrounds that allows for children to sit in multiple positions. Am I right?
Yeah, you're quite right. Yeah.
Yeah, and just talk to us a little bit about that. I think people are intrigued by how this helps somebody. Yeah.
Maybe I can just share that journey as well, because I have to recognize the Product Development Technology Station, PDTS, of the Central University of Technology. We were involved with the engineers on projects. And they were very interested in the playgrounds when we started with the playgrounds, and they actually offered to come on board. And when they saw the first swings, they said, but they would like to invest further in the playgrounds. And then when I realized, okay, we can do more than just a pallet and a tire swing, if we have research and money available, we started looking at what swings do we need that would really stimulate the balance system, because swinging is about your movement system. So any swing stimulates your your movement system. And but if you look at what movements are needed, it's not only back and forth. You need rotation, you need orbital, you need it to be a child to be in different positions on a swing. And sometimes you need 2 children on a swing. So, so we had the luxury of really going in and say, but what do we need? And then they actually started to 3D print the swings for us. Yeah, they had a huge 3D printer, and they printed the first swings. We got 3 swings actually that we designed and said, this is what we want. And then they said, okay, let's go further. And we got some more funding from our theatre, and they assisted. So with that process, they are now actually manufactured through a process called rotor molding. Yeah. So
and what would a swing, out of interest, what would a swing cost?
It depends on
the best
what
one.
swing. What
The best one that you make.
It's more or less 4,000 rand a swing.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a lot of money if you can look at other swings, and it's big swings, and they can be 2 or more children on a swing. For me, it's not a lot. And the beautiful thing is that with all the playgrounds that we've built since we started, there's people that's prepared to fund the swings because they are unique, and they do really provide other types of stimulation and enrich sensory stimulation to a child.
I get so excited when something is, I would hate to say achievable, because 9 schools is a drop in the ocean for what our country needs. And yet it is achievable because we have 9 schools that we have access to and relationships with, and we know that the story works. We know that the sensory play works. It changes children's lives. And I know so many people, big funders, donors, I know so many people want to see they want to see an asset with what they give to. We know they're saved by the foundation. A lot of our work is in programming and very personal interactions. And so a lot of times people want to see where's the wall you painted or the roof that you changed. And I just love that, because we feel often that money is wasted in some of those products. And yet in this, I'm going, here's a very exciting physical product for somebody listening going, I would love our team to be a part of installing the playground, donating it to the school. And I just know someone's listening thinking, we're in. Kath, for you, with our 9 schools, let's say, what are we talking around as budgets for these playgrounds in each school practically? How are we talking about?
I think so. Tam's done a lot of work, and like you say, we went the whole hog without assuming anyone would donate items to us for free. So I think costing wise, we're looking at least 75,000 or so, probably a little bit more. Because I think the thing to mention, it's pity we didn't have visuals of those swings. They're not an ordinary swing.
We can slide some visuals through.
So they really are quite exceptional. Some of them, I'm assuming you're lying flat on your stomach. They're spinning around. So it's not a case where you're sitting in a swing holding the handles. It's very different to that.
I needed these swings as a child.
Yeah.
I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah.
If someone spins me around, I get nauseous because I don't think I worked on my...
Vestibular.
Exactly.
That one,
the balance one.
But I think for us, I think what I want to say here is it's a tool. So we're not a drop-and-go organization.
Yes.
Like, we're working within the schools, and I think it's great wealth. It comes with the support that you offer to the educators. Because what we've seen in the past is you can give stuff. Like some of the schools are sitting with stuff in their storeroom. I won't say which stuff. High tech, and they don't know how to use it. Or it's quite scary to introduce it into your normal curriculum, which is very overloaded as it is. And so that's what I love about this, is that Anna-Marie has developed workshops, material for educators, for teachers, to incorporate it into their daily teaching system. And I think that's where the value comes. It's not just go for it on the playground while we sit and have a cup of tea. It's not that kind of playground. It's very specific. It's filling in as I've said before, filling in a gap. It's supporting teachers to be able to incorporate this science and this knowledge in a practical format in a classroom.
Yeah.
And I think because schools are generational, I mean, I love how this morning when we did a site visit, they mentioned that one of their previous pupils, he's home on holiday from Cape Town, he cleared the site. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, you're giving back. You're in the middle of nowhere, basically. Yeah. People are giving back. And I just love how it incorporates so many people in the community. We've had visits with the ward councillors. Pons has visited. it's so much more than a playground. I just want to say that. It's so much more than just a jungle gym
I
you've
like what
knocked
you're
up.
saying
And
now.
it's a tool. And I think for us, I don't mind giving stuff as long as it's got a purpose to it. Because I don't think this kind of stuff changes lives. But yeah, it's more than that. It's being able to come alongside teachers, give them a new sense of excitement about teaching.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't be pumped to be able to take your kids out and know you're still ticking the box for meeting your curriculum, but hey, it's fun.
Yes, fun, exactly.
Learning
I think
can be
that's what I'm
fun.
saying.
Yeah.
You're stripping some of the awkwardness out of it and putting it in a very natural, playful space and breaking through some of those boundaries and barriers that are holding young children back. I like what you're saying about the community. I didn't think about that part. Are you seeing that, Tam, like in the work you're doing out there, that the community are leaning in, saying, like, what's this all about? Where's it going?
Well, I think absolutely. I think when you're in the community, you realize this is what it is. It's a community space. And when you, like even being in the school now, when we need volunteers, it's let's call the parents in and see who's willing to come and be part of this. And how can, and I mean, even the school that we, Sogidi, that we're going to build the first playground in, we know has been built by the parents in that school for their kids. It's been built classroom by classroom. And that's just incredible. I think a community that buys in, you know, and it's amazing what begins to happen within people when they can be part of something and they can give, even when it feels like maybe I don't have something to give. Absolutely. And that's incredibly special. And I think just with it, what's beautiful about the relational aspect of bringing a tool and then educating, you get to know people on a different level when you walk along a road with them. And then you hear the story about your children and your sister and this. And then suddenly the whole community is reached. Maybe that person's not sitting on the swing or that child isn't, but there's something else that happens. Oh, by the way, have you tried this? Have you thought of this? Or there's something that happens that one can't always like you can't put it on paper, but it's about being there and being in that community. And I think the thing is, like, anyone who becomes part of the story, you leave with more than what you brought. Oh, yeah. And that's just the incredible part of working in community
amazing.
Spaces for everyone.
That's incredible. I think it was Andy Stanley, a guy that I followed quite closely in the early days of Vision, said this. He said, a vision's a clear mental picture of what could be, which many people have. But it's more than that. It's fueled by the conviction that it should be. And when I sit and listen to your passion for what you've seen over the years and how the playgrounds came out of that passion, that research, and now we're talking about communities coming alive in it. This is a vision not just that could be. Like, there could be cool playgrounds. It should be. We have to build playgrounds that take away the barriers for a child's, growth and future. And I'm hearing bring the community together in a beautiful way. There can't be many things more exciting than that holistic picture of that. So I was expecting like 500,000 rand. I'll be honest with you guys. I was expecting like 500,000 rand a playground, because that's what we hear in local schooling. And local schooling buy really cool equipment, and still we have vestibular challenges. Did I get the word right? Yeah. So I love that at 100,000, and I got to say numbers because people that listen to this will go, how practically can we get involved? At 100,000 rand, you've put a playground in a school that can radically change the community, and more importantly, help educate the next generation. There's not a parent in the world, rich or poor, that doesn't want to see their child educated. They intuitively know this matters for their future. And so we just want to say thank you and honor you, and I think it's incredible. Kath, do you want to say anything else from the foundation side of things?
I think I just, I've said to Anna-Marie earlier, it's such a privilege sitting in a space with people who have spent their whole lives. I mean, Anna-Marie is retired in theory, but she'll never retire. And I find those personalities, those people so inspiring, because the heart just burns to serve others. And I really find that very inspiring. And I think in the area of education, education of children, it's where the change is going to happen. And every child has a right to a good education, a quality education. And that's not necessarily going to come with money. I really don't think it has to come with just money. It can come with just people using what they have and taking ideas. And I think I heard the other day, why don't we trust God for the answers to common problems? And so for me, Anna Maria, I know, is a person of faith. She's a Christian. God gives you solutions to some challenges, which will serve humanity. And this for me is one. And I love it. I love how it excites the school, it excites the parents. And just what you touched on earlier, Dill, I've seen, and that's what we see in the communities, how parents will switch schools to try and give their kids a better opportunity. And remember, we're dealing with a legacy of illiterate parents who do feel like they haven't got anything. But here's something that doesn't require literacy. Like you can teach parents how to use these playgrounds. Once you're on the journey, you don't have to have had a degree to see the value in it when it's explained and when you show people how to use it in their normal everyday life. And I like that. That's like, it's not something out of reach.
It's very empowering for parents as well.
I think it is. Yeah.
I really do mean it. Parents feel, like I say, even in the privileged communities, how much more so in communities with nothing. They feel so ashamed of what they can't bring to their children to help them get ahead. And I just think it's such a God thing that you would move in with a dream and actually remove the shame and empower them, parents and children. And so I can't echo what Kath's saying enough, just to say thank you for your passion and your desire.
I just need to say there's been a village of people that's also been part of this journey. So it's not only me, there's really students have made a huge contribution in the initial journey, and then PDTS, the engineers there were incredible, and then individuals. There's so many people that's been part of this journey, so it's not an individual journey. And then Saisi, who at the moment is adopting this whole project, and they're also funding a part of the costs here. So there's many people that have contributed to this journey.
Okay, so if someone's listening and they want in, they cannot wait to get involved, where do they go and read about sensory spaces, Sensible?
Okay, they can go onto the website of the South African Institute for Sensory Integration, and they will find information there, or they can email me. Can we put up the email address on the screen? Yeah,
they will come up now as we speak.
And then they can contact us there.
Awesome. And if they want to partner with us, Kath, through the foundation work and the 9 schools, if they're in KZN and have a passion for this region, which we do, I've always loved that. I've loved that we've cared for our community. We've gone local and worked within the local community. So if they want to get involved in the 9 schools, how do they do that?
I think the easy way also is to hop onto our website, which is www.lincfoundation.org.za.
There we go.
And I think you can email through that way. As I said, obviously at the moment it's finance. Not that we're turning down volunteers, but this does take a specific skill. But I think for me it's just a desire that people would recognize the value of quality education. Sure. And I'm not saying whether you go to a private school or you don't, but if you can just read and write and you have your brain stimulated enough to think out the box, then that's a great start. I think, can I just challenge you to help educate someone and help educate them well, even in your own life, be it someone, I don't know, yes, foundation, we'd love your help. We'd love your support, but I'd also just like to light a fire and just say the value for someone else's child, it doesn't have to be your own.
I
it's
agree.
Huge.
Dr. Anna Marie, just one question. What's the big dream?
That all schools that cannot afford therapists, all primary schools can have playgrounds, sensory spaces, playgrounds.
How many schools do we have like that in our country?
I haven't started counting it, but there's lots and lots of them. But for me, I know that's a big dream. But for me, I know that at least a few children are going to be changed because of the playground. So each playground does make a difference to a few children. I don't know how many, but each playground does make a difference, and I think that's the important part of it.
Well, we're going to partner with you in praying for the big dream that every school in our country that doesn't have access to personal one-on-one therapy could at least have a beautiful sensory space that has been designed to help them advance. And so I think it's possible. I think it's a big prayer It's a bold prayer. We've got 9 that we're going to start with just in KZN. But one more time, if you're listening, check it out. It is called Sensory Spaces, and obviously Linc Foundation. You can check that out too. Dr. Anna-Marie, thank you so much. Your legacy already has legs that you can't see and an influence that you can't always hear. And just the fact that I'm in a room with you, I've been looking forward to this. I mean that, not just because we're podcasting, but I've been intrigued by this dream. I always love a dream that goes beyond the normal. And so we just want to honor you. You and your husband, is it Marius?
Yeah, that's correct.
And we just send blessings to your home. And let's see what God can do. Who knows what God may do in these next few years together.
Thank you so
as a
much.
partner.
Yeah.
Bless you.